Melonya Johnson, owner of BSMART Coaching, and Tahitia Timmons, owner of Conscious by Us. Together, we're here to fill your Fridays with unscripted conversations that cover the gambit: politics, current events, science, social justice, health and wellness, and more. We're here to elevate the conversation. We're fighting the brain drain, one unscripted conversation at a time. So grab your coffee, tune in, and let's dive into another episode of MT Friday.
Well,
Hey.
my finger hit the wrong button.
So before we went live, Melonya and I were talking about so I came into the space feeling like disheveled and sweaty. I had a hot flash before and ended up changing my outfit. I feel like this Friday I'm not as put together as I would normally want to be. However, the one thing that we did say was, like, I said, guys show up sometimes not very put together and they're like okay with it. My brother has visited me and I swear he has traveled with crumbs in his beard. Like, I'm like, is that food in your beard? Like, and you're out in public. He's just like, like, but I kind of feel like I won't go anywhere. Or not I won't go anywhere, but I feel like I have to go out and like kind of look cute.
Well, you know what? I don't feel that pressure. There's times where I probably look homeless walking my dog. It's like, look at that homeless woman with that beautiful dog, right? And I'm not one of those people that, you always have to have your makeup. And I've never been a heavy makeup kind of gal. But I don't, when it comes to filming, I was sharing with Tahitia that I actually get fully dressed typically, and because if I look back on that footage, I don't want to go, she really looked tired. Don't, that's not a good look. What's going on with her hair? Yeah. So I try to, and it makes me, and it goes back to, the argument that people have had for years over dress in the workplace, right? But for me, getting dressed, and I typically don't dress from my waist up. I am today, but when I record, I'm fully dressed, and because it makes me feel like I'm prepared for this event, right? And it's funny because for years I've worked in HR where there's always been a battle about dress code, right? The crazy that the dress code that nobody enforces, right?
That and some dress codes are discriminatory, right? Like I've heard from young professionals that sometimes the expense of like buying outfits, I don't think it's as strict now, but like to come every day in a suit or heels or certain clothes and you don't have the money to buy those clothes for your first job. I've heard that like to have two separate outfits is an unrealistic expectation for some of the young people that are entering jobs, and everything is just so expensive, right? So dress codes have kind of cut back a little bit based on that, and people want to like express their personality too. Um, but yeah, professional dress is an interesting topic, right? That and tattoos at work. Because, like, when I was a bedside nurse, you could not show tattoos in the hospital. Now, I believe that that's become a lot more lax. And the reason why is most likely from infection, right? So you don't want to discriminate against a great person who could put a central line in you, but they're not allowed to have the position because they have tattoos on their forearm and the tattoos would show. And the only way to cover that would be a fabric slip. So how would they scrub their hands efficiently, right? So silly, like some of that stuff seems like the tattoo issue I can see, like maybe that's not a best practice, but I do think like in professional dress, maybe your clothing shouldn't be see-through, right? Like I have had coworkers who've come in and I'm like, oh, we go to the club afterwards. And that is like the old ancient Xer in me probably jumping out and be like, somebody going out.
Well, I and I understand. well, here's the thing, and I'm kind of torn between this, uh, in the sense that I like to dress. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm a fashion god or anything like that. But when I go to work, and I always look nice. Like jeans day, it's jeans day. That never really appealed to me because I don't have jeans. Okay, but you go ahead and knock yourself out. The argument that, listen to me, if I have a business, which I do, I show up dressed to do business. I show up dressed in terms for me, in terms of, if I'm asking you for hundreds or thousands of dollars, I want to look like you can trust me with your hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And anybody who would represent me, I want them to look like they know how to do business. And let's face it, we do judge people based on their looks. Maybe we shouldn't, but we do,
Oh,
right?
100%.
But the argument that it's too expensive, I mean, all of us had our first jobs, and all of us had, I mean, that's generationally true, right? Now, you want to talk about expenses. I grew up in a time where people had to wear pantyhose. Oh, and those, as soon as sometimes they rip right before you put them on your toe, and your toe goes through. Well, that's ruined, right? And so you want to talk about expenses, but I kind of bemoan these days where people just look slovenly. I do. You're in the drugstore or in the store, and you got on your UGG slippers and your pajama bottoms, and
And I hate to say that, I think it was the Gen Xers that started that pajamas and slippers out, and like very like dressing down outside in public, not necessarily at workplaces, right? But like I do remember it was sort of like a thing, like go out in your pajama pants, like big t-shirts with like band names on, like stuff that my parents would not have gone outside in. But then like the previous generations, it was like jeans, right? That was the expression of difference. And now it's just anything, right? And maybe that's that chaotic piece that a lot of us struggle with, that the, that dress codes different places could be expansive and include anything. And I struggle with that because, like, as a diversity, equity, inclusion person, and for expression, like, I want people to be able to do whatever they want to, but I also have a little bit of like, I admit having like that little bit of like, ooh, you decided to go outside in that, like, but that is really just like me having a sort of opinion. It's more opinion than like, if you've got the guts to wear that outside, like more power to you. Like, and I do. So like, it's like, I wish we had some people listening, because I would be curious what what the rest of the world thinks about, like, when you see people in the workplace and they look very casual, does that influence you? Like, if there was a business meeting with, I don't know, like a big company, would that company and that business exec be kind of influenced if the person showed up and they were wearing a really short skirt, or like a guy in shorts, casual, like surf shorts and like a tank top, being like, I'm going to pitch you this $1 million sales proposal. There's a show out, and I don't know if you watch it. I think it's called High Potential, or it's based on a European show, and she always wears these like very short outfits. She was an actress who was on something else, and she dresses not like the rest of the police force. And quietly, they kind of acknowledge the like flamboyantness of her outfits. But she comes in, and I think it's one of those like atypical personality shows where she comes in and instantly she's like, I see how the crime was done, or like, here's what you're missing and you're wrong. But her outfits are wild, right? And so it's almost unconsciously getting us ready for Like, don't judge a book by its cover, right? Because that's what the outfit thing is about. Like, are we really talking about like not judging people by what they look like in their dress? And I'm for that. But then in practice, it sometimes my eyes hurt.
I love, you know what, I spent my 20s in New York, you know, and I never, the entire time I was there, I think I might have gone into Macy's once. I mean, you know, I was always in the little, you know, boutiques that, you know, downtown and secondhand, you know, stores, and just putting like cool outfits to get, well, what I thought was cool, right? But it was, you know, it was really fun, you know, because you saw everybody express themselves differently, and I'm all for self-expression. But I also knew that if I was going through for a job interview, that I would look, you know, a little bit differently. It was really interesting. I saw a New York Times article. It was about how, you know, school age children are dressing, and so it took snapshots of these kids and you know, different types of children with their different outfits, and they were all very different. One of the themes that I see in today's attire is comfort, right? I mean, you see, you know, the fashion these days are, you know, a woman could be in a beautiful dress and have on a pair of sneakers. I'm not a sneakers girl. I've never been, you know, a part of the sneaker culture. But I also understand the pain from heels. I love heels. Arthritic foot won't allow it these days, but I still wear my wedgies. I still want some height, okay, because I'm 5'3". But it was very interesting, and some of the kids look kind of slovenly, right? They did, but I I appreciated the fact that what I can appreciate in theory is maybe that younger generations are not as materialistic, but still they're consumers too. They just buy things that look old and baggy, right? But they're still consuming,
So
but they just don't
are
look like they are.
they less materialistic, or are they in a disposable society? Because like they don't seem to hold on to, and this is purely a judgment statement based on my kids. They don't seem to hold on to things as long. Like they don't buy a pant, like a pair of jeans, and their expectation, and their kids too, because they're growing. I get it. But they don't seem to think about like, oh, I'm gonna wear this next season or the season after. Because like even my son was saying, that I had that was from last summer. I'm like, but it still fits, right? Yeah, it's not cool anymore. So I think that some of the Sheen stuff and some of the stuff that comes out of this disposable fashion industry makes it seem like it's so cheap, right? I could just buy it and throw it away. And so I think aren't, they're materialistic in a different way. Because, like, I'll see on TikTok quite often, like, buy this version of this thing, it's like $20 less, or it's like half the price or 90% off. But it's really disposable things. Like things just aren't, like even glass, if you pick it up, isn't as heavy. Like certain things are not made the same way. That's better in some ways, right? It's less carcinogenic because we've learned that maybe we shouldn't put lead in everything. Like, you know, maybe there's better ways to do stuff. But at the same time, you know, we have a lot of just things that are never going to dissolve. Like they're never going to go away, like some of these plastics. And we have plastic in our fibers. Like that's the stretch for cotton, right? Like we add some additives and it gives us more material, but we don't have more of the resources, right? And we don't share resources. So I also want to just, because we're coming up to an election, I don't want to touch on this since we're talking about disposable stuff, and I mentioned Sheen. And I might get this wrong. North Korea, China, Russia alliance, right? And the Ukraine, and North Korea moving into there. And so China, we buy a lot of crap from, not crap, but we buy a lot of stuff
Crap.
from China, right? So they want to kind of keep us as like, I don't know if they want to be a friendly ally with us, but they do want us to be like the angry person that comes into the store and goes, I hate this store. Okay, but I will take 5 of this and 10 of this. And so we buy a lot of stuff from them, but we're a democracy. And it does concern me that one of the candidates running has a close alliance to, or it has been friendly with Russia, has hung out with some of the other leaders of those countries, and has been friendly towards the concepts of fascism. In fact, recently, one of his generals said he would categorize him as a fascist. So America, the United States, which has always been very anti-communism, anti-totalitarian countries, anti-fascism, it surprises me that we want to elect someone that literally wants to unite us with North Korea, China, and what was the other country? And Russia. How could I forget Putin? And so I am really surprised at who is, pushing Trump, because a fascist dictator country, that doesn't speak to anything the founding fathers would have wanted. It doesn't speak to anything that, why we entered some of the world wars we entered. So I'm really confused.
No, it's not anything to be confused about. And someone gave a definition. I'm going to do it now, of what a fascist is. Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian, ultra-nationalist political ideology and movement characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, autocracy, oh my goodness, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, lock them up, belief in a natural social hierarchy, subordination of individual interests for the perceived good of the nation or race, and strong regimentation of society and the economy, opposed to anarchism, democracy, pluralism, right? Fascism is placed on the far right wing within the traditional left-right spectrum. And so, when I heard the definition of fascist or fascism, I'm like, well, that describes who is running. I think I told you I had this internal conflict with a neighbor who characterized Kamala Harris as a communist, and I'm like, no, she's not a communist. She's been a public servant for
Not at all.
But we have a president who, against the law, has had secret conversations that were not recorded with Putin, who is a communist, right? He is enamored with other dictators like Kim Jong-un. And who's the one in Turkey? Who is is it Turkey or Hungary? I can't remember. But I mean, he has really been enamored with these kind of authoritarian figures. And so now North Korea is sending troops to fight in Ukraine, right? And Russia and China, what it's called.
Well,
BRIC.
we're not sure yet, but
it's called,
like, quote, we're not sure why they're there, because nothing has happened yet. But the truth is, we know what's going to happen, right? Because in the Times this morning, it said, though they haven't officially said, there's no other reason they could be there.
But we should be paying attention to that BRIC alliance. That's Brazil, Russia. Is it
I think it's India.
India.
But that's from the potential countries that are coming out with like trade and industry and things. So not all of those countries are necessarily fascist countries.
No, they're not fascist,
emergency.
but they are. What was the other? Central America. I think it was Brazil. I think South Africa, right, are a part of this new sort of economic.
Yeah. So how do we partner in a better way with those countries that are emerging so they don't go to fascism, right? Like we should not be the fascist
Well,
leader.
how the hell are we going to police the rest of the world when our house isn't in order? We can't stop another country from becoming a dictatorship or a fascist country when we're on the brink ourselves of that, and here comes my nationalism, because I'll be honest with you, I was thinking about this morning in our talk today, in our topic, and I have really, I'm all into my journey of self-care and mental fitness and whatnot, and I don't have cable news, but I do have it on Sirius XM. And you can get snippets of things on YouTube. But I'll be honest with you, at the back of my mind, is this upcoming election. And we've said throughout history that, this is an election, a historic, weight. But this really is. I mean, and there's no hyperbole in there. It's just we're talking about a candidate who tried to overthrow the government, tried to overthrow a fairly a fair election. And here's the thing: even if his words had unintended consequences, like, I didn't know they were going to go to the Capitol and do what they did.
Yeah.
It took him 3 hours to finally, after being, Fox people on Fox News and people in his cabinet imploring him to get some help. And when he heard that his vice president was in peril, he was like, well, maybe they should do what they do. So he was complicit in this, and he is up for election, and half of the country is on board with him. And I find that alarming.
It's alarming because from a ideals stance, half of the country should not. If half of the countries truly understood what democracy was, he would not be running as the candidate. There would be a different Republican candidate. And that is the honest truth. But half of the country does not understand the difference between, as you said, the different types of political systems that you can have, or the different, like, most of the country doesn't understand how the electoral college works, or even how voting in our country works, or the why, if you change registration groups, how that impacts people and can marginalize people if they have to go around to redistrict the lines, right? Like, most people don't understand government.
They don't understand why they need the Department of Education. Okay.
Yes. And they don't understand that part of it. And I think some of that comes down to the education system. So as technology, we have all of this technology we all have to learn. We have not increased the time in school or changed how we really educate people. So,
yes, we have. We've
changed it, but not in a positive way.
No, we've tried to change history, and we've tried to invoke religion. Yes, we have. In some places, we absolutely have changed.
Yes. Well, what I was going to say is we haven't allowed for the space to put that technology piece, and that, what I would call your, like, civics. Like, civics should be part every year of your schooling, because our government is complicated, and in a democracy, you want to understand how that works so you understand your part in it. And I don't think we've done a great job in that, as we've cut out, quote, like, the classes that are fluff and won't make good workers. See, that is where they're saying to you, we want you to just be trained to work. And we've taken out some of the thought things in some of the states, not all the states. But I think that adds to this confusion, of oh, she's a communist. Well, because you don't understand what communism is.
And I think in general, our quality of education is poor. There, you might have a few schools here, there, or even maybe a state. I don't even know, but I think in general, I don't think we have a high quality of education. I mean, I really don't. I'm just going to make a quick segue though. If I don't know if you have seen on the MSNBC did a interview with the producers of The Apprentice, and they said,
I have not seen that.
"Oh, it's something to see." Because they said, we want to talk, we want to come out, and we hope it's not too late. They said because we helped build an image of Trump that's not true. During our filming, the years of filming of The Apprentice, he had 6 bankruptcies. 6. He said they could not even film the talks that were held in the Trump Tower boardroom because it looked so old and dilapidated. They had a set. It wasn't even their real boardroom, right?
I'm
And
honestly not surprised, like being closer to the New York City area growing up. And I actually met him years ago coming out of what's the hotel, wherever. I met him one night, the one that's near the Broadway Theater District. I don't even remember. But I met him one night and he was, he was friendly. I think he was on The Apprentice. I was maybe had just graduated from high school. And he was like, "Hi, girls," and got in his limo and he went. But I don't remember him being like known as a big businessman. But I'm much
no,
I don't remember that about him in the city. Like there were certain people that were talked about as like business leaders, and I don't remember.
He was always
that.
a joke. He was.
I thought that like the talk back then was that he had a lot of money from inheriting money, and that he so there was the casino, there was the hotel, but I don't remember being like, hey, I don't remember it being like a fancy place, or I just don't remember that much about him in the 80s and 90s that he was some big mogul other than coming out of the show that they made. And then there was the book, and I do remember the book being a bestseller.
That he didn't write.
Yeah, because I worked at Borders at the time. And so this is probably the reasons I remember him from that time period. But I don't remember anything like about him being like this savvy business guy. But I'm being truthful. And I was young, so I probably wasn't really, but I can think of other things that maybe I thought were better business people.
He's not, and that's why these folks are coming out. The producers came out.
Like Susie Orbach never ran for presidency.
No, but
she gave good advice.
He's not savvy, He even in the real estate world in New York City, he was never a respected, builder or whatever. His father was brilliant. And his father was brilliant in how to avoid paying taxes. His father, no, seriously, his father.
That's a skill, man.
The New York Times did a really expansive article on that family and Trump years ago. And it was interesting in that article, it showed that as the Trump Sr. started to decline, he was concerned that Trump Jr. was going to do him wrong. So he solicited the help of his daughter, who was a lawyer, to help protect him against his son and doing things, that would mess up the money and jack him up, right? And I thought it was, and I thought that was really, and this was some years ago. I thought that, damn, if your own father feels that they need protection from you, we don't stand a chance, right? Because you have no conscience.
Well, all of the women he's married have seemed to they've been very quiet, and they seem to operate in a they don't really say too much about him. And like it seems like everybody would need
They
protection from
probably
him
have
because he flips
non-disclosure.
on. Yeah, they have non-disclosures too, but they don't seem that in love with him either.
Well, what
Like,
would they do?
I have an ex, and he's and like we've had our issues over the years, but he is, you know, I don't think I would ever have like those kind of like there seems to be I wish they didn't have those NDAs
Mm.
to go behind what the
Yeah.
exit like what
Well,
they're
all
thinking,
you have to
right?
do is
Love
look
that.
at Melania Trump, and you can tell how she feels. I
Her
mean,
face, any woman out there who's voting for Trump right now
just
who
look at
has
her
not
face.
seen his current wife's face,
Mm.
whenever she's like, that should tell you something. That
Reach
is the
for her,
way
reach for her
that,
hand. She pulls away.
yeah, that is like, I find it amusing, but I don't know if I want to watch that for the next 4 years too.
No,
I also don't. I don't. I'm a little concerned about the fascists. Well, I'm more than a little concerned. The the latest stuff about the fascism and how he's operating. I'm just surprised that so much of the country is still
they don't get the information. They're locked into news sources that don't provide them with the information. Geraldo Rivera just came out yesterday and endorsed Kamala Harris and said that, but and here's the other thing, and we're running over, but here's the thing that is bugging the
we are.
shit out of me is that you decide now to come out, right? And now early voting has already happened. Millions of votes have already been cast, right? Kelly does this New York Times interview where he's not even on camera. It's only voice, right? All of these people in the former and somebody I was watching, I think the Bulwark podcast, the Bulwark, and they said, all of you folks from the administration and you generals should hold a press conference, right? A press conference saying that we don't support this candidate, and you know what, that's something Fox and them can't ignore, but to see those folks en masse saying he is unfit for office. And I understood why.
Do you think that would make a difference though?
Yeah,
Because it almost feels like his hardcore supporters,
they don't get the
he could come
information.
out and
Yes, but
like
they don't.
murder somebody on televion. They
They're
would still
not
vote for
even
him.
given the information. And here's the other thing, the other point that I was wanted to make. When you are in the military, right, you're really supposed to be what's the word, apolitical, right?
Yes.
So I can understand why Kelly, right before, because we had the DOJ weigh in right before the 2016 election, right? Comey, right? With that bullshit, right? That really, even she won the popular vote. Hillary won the popular vote. But with that being said, I can understand the trepidation of looking like you're supporting one candidate over the other. But I
Yeah.
think these are extreme.
Well,
Times.
and you don't have to say you're supporting a
You don't.
candidate. And so Melania and I are going to go over today because it is 2 weeks before the election, and probably this one and the next one probably will be longer as we talk politics. We just can't help it because this is such a important election. And so I want to also add that I think that there hasn't been a real focus on early voting and how that could swing this election. Like those who have already cast their votes, we know that, as you said, people have already voted, right? But I don't think they focused on it as much because prior to probably like a decade ago, early voters or mail-in voters were mostly people who were overseas or people who couldn't get out. And that has shifted since COVID. A lot of people vote from home, just like we work from home. We're starting to vote from home more. And so I think that target demographic needs to be looked at a little bit differently. Like, how can we start really focusing on, well, the early voters, like, or the mail-in voters, like, how are we targeting them? Like, because I know I voted whenever I got it, filled it out, researched everybody, looked at, because I care about the local piece too. And I just want to say, for the local piece, some candidates did not even have anything about what they were about for my school board. And I don't have any kids in school right now, but I did want to, like, I want to know who I'm voting for. So I watched the live events, and then thought to myself, man, I would have picked somebody else because I'd already checked the box. And I think I might have told you this, but I find that as I've gotten older, I've taken voting more seriously than I did when I was younger. Even my son, and I'm calling him out right now, he had a mail-in ballot, and I got a card here. He's up at college that he hasn't voted yet. And I was sort of like, did you vote yet? And he's like, no, not yet. So come on, young people. Like, if you have mail-in ballots, vote. And I'm not saying you have to vote for who you want to, okay? But vote with the realization that, you may be voting for an ideology at the same time. And are you a fascist? Do you believe that someone should be fired without cause? Because that's what he wants to do with some of the people who he thinks are against him. Do you believe that the military should be an arm that attacks people because they disagree with the government? Do you believe that, there is racial superiority and gender superiority? Do you believe that women should not be leaders? Do you believe that your mother, your sister, your daughter is not worthy of a job that you could hold? And if you believe all that, then you are voting for the right candidate. Because I say vote for what you believe, but you're also showing other people who you are.
And also add to that list, if you believe that you don't want your vote to count, vote for Trump. If you believe that you don't believe that women should have the right to control their own bodies, vote for Trump. If you believe that it's okay to round up people and put them in internment camps like we did to the Japanese in World War II, then vote for Trump. If you believe that things like Social Security, right, should disappear, even though people have been paying into it their entire working lives, then vote for Trump. If you believe that education is not important and that the mass group of Americans should be undereducated and that we should get rid of the Department of Education, then vote for Trump. If you believe that billionaires, the plutocracy, those who are rich, should rule the United States, then vote for Trump. I mean, let's get real about who he is and who he represents. And I'll be honest with you, I find it really quite immoral that it takes billions of dollars to elect officials, right?
Oh.
Now, how much has Elon Musk put down? It just came out.
And in true transparency, this is both sides.
I was
It
going
is
to say,
too expensive to run in the
a-
United States. That's why there's such corruption.
but wait, it just came out that Bill Gates gave $50 million to Kamala Harris, right? And so you're talking about probably a billion plus multiple billions. I don't know how much this election, right? And every time I see an appeal, I was like, okay, now I get to fund, right, this, right? And now Elon Musk is doing something that they're trying to figure out if it's even
Oh, the
legal.
legality of whether he can pay people to vote.
Yeah, right. No, yeah, there's you right, but then when I think about all
And
of the
Elon Musk has that thing, and then there's another company that has something else. I forget the name of it. I think they're a like funny underwear company, where they are, or it's like one of those type of companies, like a younger company, where they're like, I think they're giving people $1 not to vote against Trump, but just to vote, like they're giving some kind of compensation or something. But they're very anti-Trump, so I think that there's been some discussion like whether what they're doing is legal. So he's not the only one that there's some questions about, but it is it is fascinating to me that when you talk to most Americans, the one thing that they will talk about is freedom. Like, people come to this country seeking freedom. Many people have come to this country generations before seeking freedom from the type of government we're talking about bringing back in. So my grandparents came from Europe during, anti-Semitism. I have on my mother's side relatives who survived the Holocaust. And so, not just from, like from Italy, from Russia, from all over, right? People have immigrated here, escaping from fascist, totalitarian countries. And barely one generation later, we are ready to elect a fascist president, which makes me sad to my core. Like, I can feel my grandfather just rolling endlessly in his grave, who fought in both wars, entered early because he believed so strongly in freedom. So when we talk about freedom in the United States, how can we even think about this? People say I'm voting for him because he's going to allow us to be more free to make choices. He wants less government, more freedom. That's not true. Like, don't believe that hype. If you're and like, here's the thing. Now, I'm not trying to distract anyone from anything or saying not to vote for Kamala Harris, but if we were in a two-party system, I wonder if this would look differently. And I understand that no candidate is going to be perfect. But like, really, this is the election where you might want to vote for, well, what's your core value? Like, if your core value is freedom and choice, then really start looking at your candidates. And not just the freedom and choice to like do what you might want to do, but also for all of the people in your circle, right? So we all have circles of people who we're friends with, who we love, who are outside of ourselves, who maybe are different from us. So that friend of yours who, like, hey, you may be a conservative person, but you hang out with this guy at work and he's turned your thoughts around about, I don't know, Middle Eastern people or Black people. Like, think about your friends from different cultures or coworkers, and what's the impact if this person comes into office? What's the impact for your older neighbors if they can't get Social Security anymore? I think I shared with you the line near me for the food pantry is very long right now. Some of that has to do with inflation and the economy. And the truth is, what we're looking at right now are the impacts of the previous presidency, right? So in 3 years, you're not going to, so usually the first sort of couple of years of a presidency, you're seeing the impact of the previous president. You're seeing that. So if they were great with the economy, they're getting some kickback from the president that came before them. I don't believe that a lot of the Biden-Harris, let me be very clear, Biden-Harris, because Biden is president. I don't think that we're seeing everything from that presidency. like, because, you know, you can't change everything. You can't overturn everything. You can't impact all the pieces you want to do. And some of the things from their presidency, we're going to see with whoever ends up being president. But I do, as a Black, queer, Jewish, disabled, like partially disabled person, I'm not scared, but I'm concerned because, Melonya, like, as long as they don't change like passports and stuff, like if the shit hits the fan, like, I'm going to try to go. And anybody with a little bit of money is probably going to try to go. Who needs to be worried is those who can't go, those who can't move to states that have some protective laws. Because here's the other thing: the states that lean towards democracy, they've been putting things in place, and yes, they're more expensive. So what are you going to do if you're in a state where you don't have these protections? And then there's the other, like the people that are fearful and say this might lead to another civil war in the United States, like a succession. I don't necessarily think that would happen, but, I don't know. I know that I would not want to lose my rights. I would not want to lose my rights, even for things like screenings, right? So the things that we take for granted, like healthcare screenings, those could go away too.
Well, I mean, it's not, there. And I say this all the time: we are not a democracy; we're a plutocracy. We are a government that is run by rich, right? And the more, and I don't have, theoretically, I don't have a problem with rich folks, right? And then I'm going to say but, which negates everything I just said, right?
You say that to me all the time.
It's because it's true, right? So what I do have a problem with is the growing gap between the haves and the have-nots, right? That's what I really have a problem with. I noticed that there have been a lot of companies, more companies, going back to being in the office full time, and in the one group that truly benefited from being able to work from home were mothers, right?
Yes.
And again, here is a society that is half women, right? Not being represented. And it wasn't like, these large corporations and these billionaires lost money because people were working from home, right? It's not that. It is a matter of we are put through the education system, right, to be workers, right? When you go to college is not about expansive learning. It's about to prepare you for the job that you're going to get. So as you go deeper and deeper into debt with homes, if you can afford one, and other things, that you are entrenched in the system and you can't get out, right? And you can help be the meat for the grinder to make certain that those who have money get more and more and more and more money, while you, me, the working folks, are frustrated and scrambling for to make ends meet, right? And that is our reality. And I don't want a plutocracy. I want this to be a democracy. And if you have never had your freedom taken away from you, then you can't really, unless you are diverse enough in your research and understanding what's happening on different areas of the world, or you're diverse in the terms of the people that who are in your life. You don't know what it's like to be, how many people on this planet right now are political refugees, right? They're leaving their place of home and family and tradition to go into the unknown in some place, and sometimes live for years in a camp to escape political execution and harassment. Right? We don't know this in this country. And I don't want us to know this in this
No.
country. But we could be the next refugee crisis, people trying to escape this country. And again, I'm not trying to be just over the top. I
Yeah,
just
like
mean that that he is a man. I mean, Kelly said in that interview that he wants, Trump has said that I wish I had Nazi generals. I wish I had, Hitler's generals.
I think that is the most disturbing thing coming around right. Well, no, I won't say he said lots of disturbing things, but that's the latest disturbing thing to say that out loud.
Over and
Yeah.
over, not just not just once, to talk about the enemy within. He is utilizing Hitler's language, like sometimes word for word. I am, what I think I'm most frustrated about. I'm a very independent human. I hate the idea of someone else impacting my life. So somebody who is not informed, racist, what is it? Low informed.
I mean, we don't know if he's racist, right?
I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the people who are voting for him.
Gotcha.
Or so rich that they just want the tax benefits that he's going to give them, right? I don't want those people, their vote impacting my life.
Well, and like I think it comes down to like the people who we're talking about are probably the people who also are the people on the team who, like, if you're on a work team, right? It's that personality that's just like, I'm out for me. So we're not going to change those minds, but maybe the people that just don't have the information or who feel just like lackluster about voting, like who think their vote doesn't count at all. Please, like, I really hope that people get out and vote. I really hope my son gets out and votes. But I know that there's some apathy out there with young people, like, or there's just apathy overall. But this might not be the election to be apathetic about.
I don't understand apathy. I don't understand. I'm never going to give my control to someone else. I don't understand apathy.
Well, I mean, I almost feel like it's the further exploration of this depression in society, right? Like they're just so sad or depressed, or they don't see any change. They don't see change happening in ways that it's presenting, so
yes.
They become apathetic. Like, it's not gonna make a difference. So
You just
why
said
even
something
care?
really important. They don't see change happening. Understand, any significant change that has happened in this country or anywhere in the world is because people got off their ass and they made it happen. Now, if you are sitting back for something magically to happen, then you can become apathetic because chances are ain't shit gonna happen, right? But the civil rights that we enjoyed that have also been the cornerstone of movements in other countries came on the backs of African Americans here in the United States who put their lives and their safety on the line to make certain that were able to vote, and made certain that there were the Civil Rights Act laws passed, right? They made those things happen. And if it had not been for their courage and their work and their tenacity and their ability and to march and to be vocal, right? If it and to be vocal when it was against their best interest to be vocal. If it had not been for that, we would not be enjoying the freedoms and the rights that we have. So this idea of apathy, I have no patience for it. Apathy is not change. If you want something, get off your ass and make it happen.
And so I would say, even like voicing your opinion on social media is important. Like, so, like, honestly, in our best interest, we probably shouldn't talk politics, right, as business owners. But I can't be apathetic about this election and not talk about some of the facts of the election, right? Like that this is a crucial election. So because I know a lot of people who are like, yeah, well, I'm not going to say anything, my thoughts or feelings about the election because I want to protect who I work with. But like, honestly, I'm gonna be honest, Melonya, I don't want to really have work with clients who are for fascism
No,
or like that's not my client.
no.
So, you know, this is fully the personal piece of me, who I am. These are my beliefs that I'm not a fascist. I'm not really a capitalist, right? I don't, and I struggle a lot with like money, not finances, but like the idea of wealth in the United States. Like I struggle a lot with how wealthy some people are. Or even like now you don't have this problem, but I think I've mentioned it to you before. Like when someone like those spam ads that businesses will get where it's like, do you want to make $1 million a quarter, right? From someone who's going to help you grow your business, right? That is the most offensive email or ad I get because honestly, I don't want to make, like, it sounds terrible. I don't want to make $1 million a quarter because I don't need $1 million a quarter. I don't. I don't. I work so that I can survive.
Yeah.
I don't want to be rich. I don't want to be
Don't
that's
ever
not
say
my
those
goal.
words. Ever. Don't ever say
I
those
said it. I did say it because
words.
if I could work without money, I would. I would love to work in a utopian world where we function not on money, but on our joy and love.
Yeah.
La
I'll tell you.
la la.
Yeah,
That's the next world.
I get you.
Reincarnation.
Let me make the $1 million a quarter, and I will donate a whole hell of a lot. Okay, but no,
That's true too.
you can. Hey, I don't hate me for making it. Now, what I do with it is one thing. You know, I just do believe
So
that.
if you do have a real way to make $1 million a quarter and blow up the business, shoot those emails to Melonya. She will take them. She will take those suggestions and she will donate the rest of that money.
I just say, oh, wait, hold it.
Oh,
Percentage.
a percentage.
A girl's gotta live.
Do you notice how? But this is funny. It's going to take us someplace else, and I want to close this out at the 60 minutes. But like, do you notice like people start out with best intentions, and then when they start to make money, they're like, "Oh, I did
I'm
donate
gonna vote for Trump.
1%." I've donated 1% of my $1 million a quarter, right? Like, because it's like when people have money, they're less likely to give up money. So yeah, that was funny. You're like, whoa, whoa, whoa! I didn't say I was going to donate all of
it. Hello. Yeah. That's so
oh
funny.
man.
Yeah. That's
But this was fun. That's the dog shaking in the background. But this was fun.
Yeah.
And politics is such a fun conversation with you because we agree mostly on most things. I probably have a more like naive, like I wish we didn't use money,
I don't think it's naive. I think it's. I think that I've come to understand that capitalism is it had the end. There's no end game because it's fueled by greed and the virus of greed and that can never. It's like locusts, right? That come and clear the land, at the end, if the consumer has nothing to spend on, then what happens to capitalism, right? And
that
so
is a conversation for next week.
it
Next
is
week, Melonya and I are going to talk capitalism, more election stuff, women, and I think next week, let me say next week.
the last one before the election.
Next week, I will know that follow-up to that test for that mammogram, hopefully.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
hopefully I'll have good news.
Let's pray.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. All right, folks. It's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, my friend. And we'll see you next week on MT Fridays.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on MT Fridays. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and share for more insightful discussions every Friday. Remember, the brain drain stops here, so keep the conversation going by connecting with us on social media or visiting our website. Until next time, stay curious and keep filling your mind with knowledge. See you next week, Friday, on MT Fridays.